How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be going over how you can level up your PvP reward tracks fast in New World without the need to actually PvP. That way, even if you're just a PvE player, you can still get your hands on those juicy artifacts that are locked behind the PvP rewards track. But first, please consider giving the video a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out massively. Now, let's get into it. People play New World in many different ways, but a majority of the player base can be broken down into two main categories: PvP players and PvE players. These two player bases usually stick to their choice of activities, but sometimes systems are implemented into the game to force them out of their comfort zones. One of these systems is how you go about getting artifacts, and particularly the artifacts that are locked behind the PvP rewards track. This system forces PvE players to put tons of hours into PvP to get the artifact they're after. The thought of this might be very off-putting for some PvE players out there, but I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be, as there's ways to level up your PvP tracks without actually getting involved with any PvP, and that's what I'm going to be going over here today. I agree, it can also be off-putting for PvP players to be forced to do PvE activities like raids or expeditions for their artifacts, but the drop rates are a whole lot better for them, and the grind is nowhere near as intensive. Plus, you can just pay for carry groups who really don't want to participate in those activities. Before I get into the methods, let me first quickly explain how the artifact drop system works for the PvP rewards track, as it's been changed recently to buff it up a bit, but it's still a pretty long grind. Let me explain how it works exactly. Artifacts can only drop from the third checkpoint of a PvP reward track, which alone takes a good amount of time to get to. Added on top of that, you only have a chance at an artifact twice, all the way up to track level 50, on levels 29 and 39. So getting to track level 50 is a hefty grind to begin with possibly no artifacts to show for your effort. Thankfully, once you've gotten here, to level 50, the grind eases up a bit, as tracks 50 to 200 have a significantly higher chance at seeing you get artifacts. Thanks to Zelenin for the numbers, but as you see on screen, between tracks level 50 and 99, you'll have really good odds at these artifacts, but there are quite a few of them locked behind this track, so you might have to go through a couple of levels before you get the one you actually want. If you're a returning player to the game, looking to pick up some artifacts, but you're already over 100 track levels, you're gonna have a slightly longer grind, but still, there's some good odds on tracks ending in 4 or 9. But now that we know how the drop system works, let's get started with my favorite way to go about this PvP track grind, while completely avoiding actually getting into PvP conflicts. And that's by using the Great Cleave PvP missions method. Now, if you've played for a while, this method will probably be one you've done or heard of, and you may be thinking, but there is a chance at PvP encounters with this method. But that's changed, thanks to a recent addition to the game that makes this process a whole lot safer, which I'll go over more shortly. I'll start from the beginning though, for anyone new to this method. Basically, you can only be heading over to Warden's Rise outpost in Great Cleave, and grabbing all 3 of your faction's PvP missions here. The reason this spot is so good is that you always get the same 3 missions, and they're very close to one another, so they can be knocked out very quickly and farmed over and over for great results. 2 of these missions are the same for all factions, but one, the Infiltrate mission, will have slightly different pickup and drop-off locations, but they will still be near all the other missions. Once you have your missions grabbed, start heading out towards the first objective. And this is where the recent change comes in that makes this a whole lot safer, and that's the implementation of 2 new fast travel points. As you see on screen, when I leave the outpost and head out on my missions, at the bottom left, I have 30 seconds of PvP protection, so no one can attack me in this period. That's just enough time to make it to the first fast travel point, called the Shrine of the Wolf. Keep an eye on my PvP flag at the bottom left, as just by running up the steps to this fast travel point and then back down, I keep my PvP missions will get another 30 seconds of PvP protection. That 30 seconds is enough to then get me to the next fast travel point, called the Meridian Shrine, for another 30 seconds, and so on and so forth. As I run between fast travel points, I'm completing the Show of Strength mission, which just requires me to be in the bite area for 1 minute and 30 seconds. This one, I usually don't even have to stop for, or focus on, as the bite is such a large area. I'm usually in it for that long anyways, just completing the other 2 missions. But the mission I focus on first is the Infiltrate mission. This one requires you to go to a spot, grab an item, and then drop it off in another location. It's very easy, but the spots will be slightly different for each faction. I'm showing you footage from my Marauders character, which has me picking up items in the west and dropping them off in the north. But my Covenant character picks up in the east and drops off in the west. Depending on which faction you're in, it may take a couple of runs for you to decide on the most efficient way to do your missions, but for me, it's to start by following the path out of the outpost, tagging each fast travel point to keep my PvP protection timer up, and then heading to the pickup point in the west. I also make sure that I'm close enough to the bite while doing this that the timer in the top right starts ticking down, so this mission is complete by the time I'm done with the 3rd mission. So I go ahead, grab the item, and then by the time I drop it off in the north to complete the mission, my Show of Strength mission should also be done as well, just leaving 1 more to be completed. From there, I drop down into the area just behind the bite to gather 5 chests to complete my Enemy Intelligence mission. Don't worry if you're doing this method over and over, even if you've looted the chests before recently, you can still loot them again infinitely for the missions. You just won't get the extra rewards after the first looting. There's a good amount of chests in this area, so grab 5 as you're making your way back in the direction of the outpost, and then head back to turn in your quests. This is the only part where it's a bit riskier, but you could always tag a shrine before you drop into this area, and you can hug the walls of this area as well, keeping an eye out to see if anyone is coming your way, and just avoid them. But once that's done, double check that all 3 of your missions have been completed, and head back to the outpost. If the Hold the Bite mission isn't complete for some reason, just make sure you stay in the area however much longer you need to finish it off. To be safe, you can tag teleportation shrines on your way back to the outpost as well, but if you notice no one's in the area griefing, you can take the minor risk and just run straight back. The same goes for when doing the missions. If I notice the area to be quiet, I tend to skip tagging certain fast travel points, just to speed up times. If by any chance you have your protection timer run out, and you get attacked while out on your missions, just make a run for the nearest fast travel point, and once you get there, the person will no longer be able to attack you, and you'll get your 30 seconds of PvP protection back up to get away from them. To be extra safe, you can even throw on some heavy gear and good mobility weapons like the rapier or the great axe, to make it easier to make distance between you and any possible attacker as you make your way to the fast travel point. And having a maxed out riding skill for the faster mount speed will not only speed up your run times, but also help you get away easier. Don't stress though, with all these fast travel points in the area, if you wanted to, you could do this very safely and have very minimal possibilities of getting ganked. But now that you've completed your first run, hand everything in at the outpost, and you should be getting roughly 1050 PvP XP, 600 Azos Salt, 3136 faction tokens, and 17 coins per run, after your first 3 daily bonus missions. These missions take me 5 minutes to complete on average, but it's worth noting that you can only grab 3 new missions every 5 minutes, so maybe you might want to have a stopwatch up, and if your run is going extremely fast, and you're heading back to town in less than 5 minutes, you could stop for a bit to gather some resources until it's been a full 5 minutes. Based on those numbers, you could be getting 12,600 PvP XP per hour and 7,200 Azos Salt, which is really good for such a safe method. But I know grinding the same missions over and over can get tedious, so I'll show you one more method I do, which is more AFK, and I basically do when I need a break, or have other things to get done, and that's to just sit on faction control points AFK. I do this a lot when I'm writing scripts or making thumbnails. For this, just head to any of the forts throughout Aeternum that is not owned by your faction, and sit on the faction control point, which is the big flag in the middle, and then go do whatever it is you needed to do. Of course, sometimes people might come and kill you while you're AFK, but I find a good chunk of the time I manage to just capture the point for the free XP while getting 15 minutes of AFK time. I am in a legacy server though, so server population can affect your odds, and also what time of the day you're doing this at. I also find forts on the outskirts of the map and less popular zones to be easier to capture without anyone coming than the more touristed zones. But by sitting on one of these points AFK for 15 minutes, you'll get roughly 1100 PvP XP and 300 Azos Salt. If other people from your faction choose to come join you, you can capture these points even faster, and it's safer. So if you wanted to, you could also let people know in faction chat which points you're after, so maybe a couple will end up joining you, scaring off anyone that would have tried to come kill you while you were AFK. Then, whenever I capture a point, I simply recall to in, go to another point, and then go AFK again for another 15 minutes. I'll link you the video where I go over this method in a lot more detail in the top right and video description, if this sounds like a method you'd use, so you can get more tips and tricks to be the most effective you can be with this method. Also, quickly, I made another guide a while back on how to play Outpost Rush if you're bad at PvP and you're more into PvE, and I'll link that now as well, so you can check it out, because I know doing the same thing over and over can get tedious, but at least now you'll have 3 different options to rotate between to keep things fresh. But that covers how I go about leveling up my PvP rewards track without having to actually get involved in any PvP. I hope this can help some of you PvE players out there grind out your tracks to get those artifacts you're after. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them below, and let me know which artifact you're after. Also, if the video is of any help, please consider giving the video a like and subscribe to the channel. But until next time, have a good one. Thanks for watching another video, and a massive shout out to all the channel members and patrons seen on screen now. Links on how to become one in the video description. If you'd like to learn more about the AFK faction control point method I mentioned earlier, click on the video to the left. Or, if you'd like to learn how to play Outpost Rush as a PvE player without getting involved in the PvP aspects of the mode, click on the video to the right.